Hi, my name is Andrea, and today I'm going to teach you how to do a few different functions in Excel, including the concatenate function, which allows you to combine different cells into one, Vlookup, and then how to use charts or tables. So this data set is picking different tax years that are typed down this way, so 12/31, 2015, 16, and etc., and then what year I want that to equal. So by having a by choosing a taxpayer's filing status and then their tax year, I wanted to combine those two into one cell. So by doing that, I'm using the function concatenate. So you type equals concatenate, and then you pick the cells that you want it to combine. So I-20 is married filing joint, and then comma, whatever you want to be next. So it's parentheses and then a space, so that there would be a space in between what information was named in those cells. And then I picked the next cell, so comma, and then the next cell, which was 2019, and then end parentheses. So when you hit enter, your result equals married filing joint 2019. So then what I did was I made an actual table for every single filing status for each tax year, which are all of these. So these are the names of every single chart that's in this template. So in order for the template to know which chart to use, it's actually going to do a VLOOKUP and say, look up this name here, so married filing joint 2019, in this column, and then tell me what the corresponding name is in the second column. So this cell here is where I did that VLOOKUP. So do you see that MFJ 19? So this says, you say equals VLOOKUP and then parentheses, and then you select the cell that you want to find. So I want to find this word, married filing joint 2019, and then you say comma, and then you tell it where you want it to look. So I picked this cell, and then, whoops, when I do the comma part, or when I'm picking the selection that I want it to look in, I just hold my mouse down and highlight it like that. And then I say commas, whoops, comma, and then equal the column that I want it to return the value in. So I selected that chart area, so H26 to I66, just by holding my mouse down and selecting it, and then comma, and then the number 2, which means I wanted to tell me the answer in the second column from the data that it was finding, and then comma 0, which means I want it to be a true or false answer. So I wanted to find that exact name, whereas if that name wasn't in the cell or in the data table that it was looking in, it would tell you error. So another way that you can do this, which is how I used to always do it when I first started using VLOOKUP, because I could never remember the sequence of what to pick when, is you can click on the FX button, and it makes it a little bit easier because it tells you what to do. So look up value. So I'm telling it, look up I-22, which is this cell here. So look up married filing joint 2019, and then in the table array. So then I highlight the table that I want, and then the column index number, which column do I want? I picked 2 because I want the answer from the second column. And then range lookup true or false, which it tells you here what that means. True or admitted, and or find an exact match, which equals false. And you can see here by putting 0, that equals false. So I think 1 equals true, 2 equals false, or 0 equals false, or I think you can type that actual phrase, true or false. You say okay. And then here, the answer is MFJ 19. So if I look in my table of data that I told it to look in, and I go to married filing joint 2019, the corresponding table name was MFJ_19. And so the reason that I had to name them specifically this way for the tables is that you can't have any spaces in a table. So what my point of doing this was, to be able to have the template automatically know exactly what table to use for your particular client. So I need my template to look in this table named MFJ_19. So I'll show you what the actual tables look like. So if I scroll down, I put in these groupings, so 2019 tax charts. And if I just expand that, I made a separate table, so 2019 for all of these, for each filing status. So there's a table for single 2019, married filing jointly 2019, and so on. So if I click on that table, the place that you can name it or see what that table is named, so click anywhere on the table, and then you go up here to Table Tools on the top of your screen. And then on the very far left side, it says Table Name. So if you actually like copy a table and paste it, it'll rename it the same thing, but it'll add additional numbers onto the end. So you have to be very careful in knowing exactly what your table was named so that you can reference it. And so the point of using a table, which I'd actually never done before and didn't know existed, is very cool. So because I've now told the template exactly what table to use, it's going to now look up my taxable income amount in that table, and then it's going to reference that table name in my formula to actually calculate the tax. So this line here, income tax, the formula is saying, it's an if statement, but the point of showing you this is to say, look up this taxable amount in, when you say this indirect function, and then this cell B12. B12 is the name of that chart. So instead of having to actually highlight that table that you made, it's actually just going to know, find it in the table that's named that. So that's actually very powerful, because otherwise it would have been impossible to do this, to have in one template to pick from any number of years without having to do a bit of manual work. So this allows me to basically pick any tax year, any filing status, change it as many times as I want, and no matter what is selected, it'll automatically use the right table, simply by picking the client's tax filing status and the year. And then I'll automatically combine those into this sentence and then tell me what table name to use. So by doing that, it'll then do a very, rather complicated formula using that table reference to find the information that I wanted. So that's how charts can be very helpful. And another way, so another example of using Vlookup was for each tax year, the marginal tax rates have changed, which then made that kind of annoying to use one typed out rate for each year because they changed. So I ended up making this little table here to say the tax year and then what was each marginal rate for that year. So 2015 through 2021. You can see this 2018 is when they changed. So 15% became 12%, 25 became 22, etc. So the place that I use this is then over here where I wanted it to list the marginal rates in this direction based on what the current year was. So, so if I double click on this where it says 10%, I'm telling it to say equal Vlookup and then look up the cell information that I want. So it's looking at find 2019, which is my client's tax year, and then comma in the data set that I want to look at, which is this. So I would just hold my mouse down and select the table that I want, and then comma, which column do I want? So I said column 2. So the column that you're picking for, like you're telling it to look in, is column 1. So I'm saying find 2019 and then tell me what's in the second column, which is one column away from that, which is 10%. And then comma 0 to say find the exact match. By doing that, it automatically looks up the tax year for my current year and then tells me the tax rate for each marginal rate for that particular year. So as I mentioned, I put 2 here because I wanted the second column. So then in the next cell down, because I want it to now be the third column, I use the exact same formula, but instead of putting 2 for the second column, it now says 3 for the third column, and then so on. So just each one going down, it now says 4, because I want the fourth column, fifth column, and so on. And then just in case you're not aware, these dollar signs in front of the letters make it so that when I copy this formula down, it won't shift. So if I had said I-21 and then I copy this formula down, it's then going to do I-22 because it's going to think I want to keep moving down, but I actually want every single cell here to use I-21. So by putting the dollar signs around the I here, when I copy this formula down, it'll continue to say I-21. And then same thing with the data set. For all of these, I want to use the same data set, but I wanted to be able to quickly just copy and paste the formula down. So by putting in the dollar signs before and after the K, that made it select the same table range each time. So that's something that's really helpful when you're copying and pasting formulas, but you want to have it linked to a particular cell and not have them change. You just use the dollar sign. And a shortcut for that is the F4 function on your keyboard. Yeah, so Vlookup is super helpful. You can use it basically in so many different ways. Anytime you want to look up a particular thing and give you an answer that's in a column further away from that, you can use it. So just looking at it again, so equals Vlookup, find the cell that I want, which is, or you could always type it in. You don't have to actually link it to a cell. I could say Vlookup the word, I could type in 2019 and it would do the same thing. Look it up, so comma, then in this table, and then tell me, in this case, 6 columns away. So if I scroll over, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the answer should be 32%. Should I go back? It's 32%. Okay. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.